Hi, I'd like to welcome everyone to this month's episode of Repairer's Realm. This month we're going to be talking about the Ford Structural Sectioning Guidelines. So in this episode we're going to really focus in on the F-150 and the little tabs where the studs mount for the running board. So I think this is going to be a really great episode because this is one that we've gotten a lot of questions on the Repairability Technical Support website. So I am Scott Van Hooley. I'm the manager of the RTS team, and with me is Jason.
Hey, I'm Jason Hubble. I'm one of the subject matter experts here. And with us today, we also have Jerry, and I'll let him introduce himself from Ford.
Hi, I'm Jerry Benani, Senior Engineer for Paint and Body Damage Repair at Ford.
All right, so thank you for joining us today, Jerry. This is one that you and I have had so many conversations on. I think this is going to be a great one to really help the industry finally grasp, how many different things they can repair on this truck, especially with this running board damage.
Definitely.
So I want to remind everyone that's watching live, if you have any questions throughout the program, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little tab for your questions. You can put them in there. If you're watching it on demand, you can send those questions into repairersrealm@i-car.com. And with that, we have a little video clip that we're going to talk through, and we can get that video clip started. We'll start reviewing it. So Jerry, walk us through kind of on this tab repair here, or this repair, what was kind of the main reason that Ford developed this repair procedure for us?
It happened a lot in Canada where a lot of the trucks that are used in the oil drilling fields, they'd be running through the fields at high speed and pretty good speed and would actually bottom out the running board. And when they bottomed out the running board, they would rip these away from the inner rocker panel. So when you look at the damage that occurred to the truck, there was no other issues with the rocker, the inner rocker here, except for the mounting studs you see here for the running board.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I think a lot of repair facilities were, in the beginning they were cutting off the entire uniside just to get access to this part because this is your innermost part of that rocker assembly, correct?
Correct. We want to try to go with the least invasive repair that we can. Naturally, as you look at this type of repair, we allow sectioning on the inner rocker panel of this vehicle. So if we can section it versus replacing the entire piece, you're into a far less invasive repair.
And Jason, I noticed when you guys were doing the repair here, you went through and switched to a lot of different tools.
Yeah, we did. It's kind of now on a car where there was actual damage to that stud. If the stud was gone, you might not have to switch so often. But with any repair, it's good to have a lot of tools at your disposal because of all the different contours and angles and things. It's not always easy to get in there and cut only what you want to cut.
Well, and I noticed too, where we cut it, we didn't go all the way to the flange where it would actually be up against the reinforcement. We stayed up where it was at higher point. So Jerry, just kind of give us a little bit of background of how that kind of came to be.
Well, basically, when we looked at this repair, the idea was the technician has the option, the flexibility to do the repair as he or she sees fit. When you see this repair, the idea is that being able to even offer it is a godsend because in the past, you'd have to be replacing this entire inner rocker. So with the availability of sectioning procedures like this, it definitely maximizes the ability to repair the vehicle in a timely manner and not be so invasive about it either.
The other thing too with if you're able to stay on that raised part only, then you don't have to worry about the adhesive that's in between the pinch weld there.
Very well said. You're just repairing the raised portion not really getting into an area that has the adhesive. Remember, the key strength here is the rivets, though. The adhesive is important, but the rivets comprise the main strength in this location and this area.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really fully grasp, Jerry, is that, I think a lot of times they look at rivets and they look at them as just kind of something to hold the vehicle together while the glue dries. But that's not really true on the Ford vehicles, correct?
That is correct, Scott.
So it's there for a little bit of structure, but it's also there for corrosion purposes and NVH too, right?
Primarily NVH and corrosion protection. The rivets are the key strength. And I'll get on my usual soapbox here. Remember that anytime you're driving one of these rivets, especially the SPRs, make sure that you do not deviate from the rivet patterns or the mandrel patterns that are set forth in the workshop manual. There's a lot of key rivets if you see the stack up here, right in this view. And you definitely want to make sure if you are replacing this part, if it's damaged much more than this, that you're using the rivets that we call out.
Okay. So, one thing that in the video that I think you guys did a really good job is also showing, cleaning that backside and getting that all the contaminants for your weld zone out of there.
Right, and then that's an advantage of you doing it on that raised portion. You can actually kind of access the backside of that and clean that up for your welding.
And so, Jerry, now if the damage went down into, the portion of that raised part where it actually transitions down into the pinch weld, can you still do this kind of repair there?
Yes, you can. You just want to clean up the weld affected zone of any of the adhesive in the area, but primarily you're looking at the same type of repair. Now, how often do they get damaged? It depends on the impact and how the accident occurred, with the running board being bottomed out or anything else being hit.
All right. And, I think that's something that's, all the ones that I've seen, it's almost always that stud just literally gets torn out. It kind of bends it down out the bottom, and it's just that extreme pressure point. And I haven't seen any that have gone beyond that. I'm sure there are some. But, that's where this one, I just think about taking the both doors off, taking the uniside off, and all that, you're disturbing all those factory connection points for no reason if you don't, know about this repair. And so this is just a huge time saver for not only for, the shop to get this work done, but it's also going to be something that is a far less invasive repair for the customer, where you're not disturbing all those things. So, you can get a good quality repair without ripping the whole vehicle apart.
Exactly, Scott. One thing I'll say too, we wrestled with this quite a bit when we looked at dimensioning out the repairs for this vehicle in the beginning, back in 2014, 2013 even, on these families of vehicles. The one key thing that we saw here was that with the steel stud, essentially it's like a rivet, how that's installed into the inner rocker. It's a very unique tool. There was ways that we were looking at, could it potentially be just the stud replaced in the field? But we never found anything that would be suitable that would get it in there under the same way that it was originally installed. So if a stud is broken out or fallen out, this is really the only repair that we could see that was feasible.
Okay. And are we able to get the second video up? All right. Looks like we're going to start that video, and so we'll get into that second video for it. All right. So now it looks like we got the service part here, and now, Jason, walk us through a little bit how you guys worked through this, getting that service part and getting that part made.
Sure. First thing we did was we took a measurement to make sure that when we get the replacement stud up in there, that it was going to be in the correct location. And then he's just taking the piece he cut out and making some rough marks to rough cut it out. And then you'll see, once he gets it over to the vehicle, he'll do some final fitting using a grinding wheel and just shaving the edges so that you could get a really nice tight fit in there. We found that doing a butt weld with no root gap was the best setting for our welder. So that's what we went with. We got a real nice tight fit in there, and then went ahead and butt welded that in there.
Okay.
Yep, and there he's, just fine tuning the fit.
Yeah, no, I think that's, one of the hardest concepts for a collision tech to kind of get past is that sometimes you have to take more time in the beginning of really getting something dialed in, because then everything else in the repair just goes that much smoother and fits up better and just works better all around.
Yep, exactly. I'd hate to rush this and maybe have that stud be off a little bit, and your car gets all done, and you go to put the running board up there to finish it up, and it doesn't fit.
Oops.
That'd be a bad day.
Yep. All right. So,
Look at that.
yeah, that's not too shabby already. I know he does a little bit more fine tuning on it, but Jason, let's just spend a little time talking about some of the practice welding that you did ahead of time.
We did a lot of practice welding ahead of time. It was, when you do, typically when you're doing an aluminum repair, you're either doing a lap or a butt weld with backing, not just an open butt joint. So that took a little bit of time with the welder and the setup. We had being here at iCar, we had some of our coupons that we could use, but ultimately we ended up using some of the leftover service part pieces, which anybody can do. You're going to have a lot of leftover aluminum when you do this repair. So I would highly recommend, spend as much time as you need to with your welder, and make sure that when you only get one shot to put it in there. Make sure that you got all your setup dialed in before you strike an arc.
Yeah, and I think, so many times when you're in a shop, you see people tuning the welder while they're on the vehicle. And with, this one, you have a very small area, and, this is holding the running board on. There's people that, are getting in and out on this. And anytime you have a bad weld, it can show up in a very horrible time and horrible way. And this one, if, you had several of these studs and all of a sudden the customer goes to get in there and you did, you tuned the welder on the vehicle and only one little piece of that was actually holding, that's not going to be a good quality repair.
Right. Yeah, the last thing you want is for somebody to step on that running board and it drops underneath them and they could fall even.
Yeah. But, and even here, taking the time to stop and measure something to make sure that it's right. Yep. And not find out after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. And here he's just clearing a little bit of extra spot there for the ground clamp, so he can put the ground clamp right next to where he's welding.
Yeah.
It's really a straightforward repair. You think about it,
Yeah.
It is.
Pretty straightforward. I mean,
yeah, it's one that it's not a typical repair we've seen on any vehicle, but it's a very practical repair that I think will, especially as these vehicles age, this would be a kind of a repair that might save a vehicle from being a total loss, because now you're not cutting that whole uniside off. I mean, that gets to be quite extensive in that repair when you're doing that kind of a large-scale replacement.
Yeah, very extensive. I think about having all the work that goes into getting to that panel from the outside, which you have to do if you replace the whole panel. And it just, if there's no damage to the outside, it just, it would feel horrible to cut all that off the truck.
Yeah. All right, and so, and even here I noticed, with aluminum welding, Notice a little bit of a tail end on the bottom there, and then I'm assuming you had a little bit of a crater fill at the end?
Yep. Yep. We had the welder set up with hot start and crater fill. And those were actually a couple of things on the welder we were using. You can fine tune those as well. And we played around with those to get it to where we thought it was the best. It worked really well to start at the bottom with that hot start. It was enough to give it good penetration. But because you were starting on cold aluminum, it wasn't enough to like blow a hole there. So it worked really well to start there and then continue on upwards.
And, once again, one of my favorite tools, the file belt sander.
Oh, yeah.
I really wish I had that when I was in the shop, because that would have saved a lot of headaches for a lot of different things. So I'm very glad they came up with that tool.
Me too.
Yeah, same here. One of my favorites.
All right, so that about wraps the video. We'll get to your questions in a moment here. Just want to remind everyone that if you're watching this live, those questions can go in the tab in the right-hand corner. And if you're watching this on demand, send those in to repairersrealm@i-car.com and we will respond to you. So we get the first question pulled up here. All right. So if this repair has been performed in this area before, can it be repaired again?
I don't really see a problem with it. I mean, the key is that you're probably going to have to go a little wider out, a little further out to do the weld properly. But I wouldn't see condemning the vehicle if you just have to weld a couple of these back in where they've been welded before.
Yeah, and I know we have a best practice around that you basically just have to go to the next location, and where this one you have
Yes.
kind of that ability to choose where it goes, with a few little caveats, of you can't obviously section it right through where a rivet goes and things like that. Like you're going to have to adjust and make an informed decision, but that's one of the things I think is kind of industry wide that can kind of, when you've got multiple welds like that, to do the same weld in the same area twice on anything is going to be really difficult.
Yeah, that can get really tricky.
All right.
Yes.
So the next question, is there a point where the size of the repair no longer allows for this kind of sectioning and requires full part replacement?
No. In the workshop manual, we clearly state that the part may be sectioned according to the repair plan needs in the manner that the technician sees fit for the damage on the vehicle. Much like we talked exterior sectioning, the inner rocker here can be butt jointed in further sections, longer sections. So if there's extensive damage to it, by all means section it. I see no reason to replace the entire piece unless it was really severely damaged.
Okay. Next question, if we have a few bad areas on one that was torn out past the raised area, and is wondering if they should check it with a dye penetrant before continuing with repairs.
They could. I mean, standard industry practices would apply. I'm all fine with that. We leave that to the technician training and judgment that they're going to do the right thing for the repair and the damage to the vehicle. Their training and experience dictates that.
Next question is, so we showed the lower bolts. Somebody's asking, what if it's one of the upper bolts that's a little higher up? Can you also do this repair there?
Yes.
Okay, that's a very simple answer. I like that.
We wanted this truck to be simple to repair. That's the key. This is not an exotic vehicle with a pickup bed. This is an F-150. It's going to be repaired everywhere. And the key that we wanted from the beginning was to keep the repair simple.
Okay. Well, I think, we've been talking about this truck since probably, 2014 before it even launched. And I know we were getting so many questions on repairing this truck before it even hit the dealer lots. And I had to tell people, like, just wait till the vehicle comes out. I think you're going to be okay. But they were very panicked that this was, 90% of their business were F-150s because of their area they were in. And it was a major shift, but I think the industry has really embraced it and, have found that the repair truck is very repairable.
I have techs come up to me unsolicited when I've done reviews of shops with the certification and other things. I've had techs come right up to me and say they would rather repair these than other vehicles. For a body man to come up to me and say that, that's never happened in my career since '04. I've never had anyone come up to me and say I prefer working on this over any other vehicle. I had a young guy in Ann Arbor was doing door skins. He's like, I don't know why these older guys have so much trouble doing door skins. I'm doing 6 a week, he tells me. So, the thing is that it's a learning curve, of course, but I'm very, very happy with how the truck has been received. I'm happy with its insurance performance. Naturally, we want to try to alleviate anybody saying the wrong things, how to repair it incorrectly. I want to try to squash that before it boils and gets bigger. But the way that I see it is that by doing things like Repairers Realm, working with iCar, working with the industry and shows and other stuff, we keep getting that message out there. Being on this program since 2009, I am just thrilled with how it's been received. I mean, I was part of this when it was just the beginning thought in the executive meetings. And I got to tell you, if we were going to do it on any vehicle, this was the one to do it on.
And it looks like we had one more question come in here. So was it a really tight butt joint? And you kind of had to tap it in there, so it had to be pretty tight.
Yeah, it was really tight. When we were doing our weld testing to set the welder up, we found that doing a butt weld, an open butt weld, with no backing, if we put the panels together real tightly, we got the best results with our welder. There again, you're going to have to play with whatever equipment you have to get it dialed in, and you might find that the same thing works for you, where you have no gap to perform that butt weld.
Yeah, and I think that goes to, the experience of the welder, your technique. There's a lot of different things that you can adjust to get the same results. And that's what, sometimes makes welding a little bit more complicated for people, is they don't understand that, it's either the welder or the welder, and you can adjust both. And, once you understand that, a lot of things become a little simpler.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, that looks like all the questions that we have for this month's Repairers Realm. And with that, well, thank you, Jerry, for taking the time to work with us on this, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure. And again, thank you for really getting a good message out there to everyone. And have a great day, all of you.
You as well.
You as well. Thanks.